Well, today might be the last day of decent weather that I have here at the cabin. Tomorrow, we're expected to get snow. And I have a bunch of projects that I need to tend to around the property. Things that I haven't had a chance to do until now. And with snow expected to fall tomorrow, I can't afford to wait another day. So some of these things are wants and some of these things are absolute must-do tasks. And the first one is a want, and that is that I'm going to head outside and I'm going to collect as many lingonberries as I possibly can before the snow covers them up. And then I'll take you along with me as I walk through a checklist of things that I need to do before winter sets in to make sure that I stay safe. And some of these things are things that you might want to take into consideration for your own property as well. So join me. Lingonberries are relative to cranberries, and they grow wild all over Alaska. Here on my property, they're probably the most predominant berry that I have. I don't really have blueberries. I don't have a whole lot of much else. The raspberries that grew here this year were so tiny, not really worthy of collecting for eating. And so lingonberries are going to be my best bet. You can see these still have a bit of pink on them and some white. They're not very dark in color. And so therefore these ones are not ripe. And so I'm going to move further down the driveway where I know that there are definitely some ripe. Lingonberries are definitely sweetest after a few frosts. And we've had frost off and on for the last month, I would say. And so now is the perfect time to harvest them. The plants grow on a low ground cover that is evergreen. And these berries will stay on here throughout the winter. I'm looking for lingonberries that are more this color than this. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze them both so you can see the difference here. And there you can see what the difference is. This is ripe. This is not. So red or pink is out, and the dark maroon or burgundy is the ones I'm going for. Very juicy, very sweet. They are a little bit tart, like a cranberry, but they're definitely sweeter than a cranberries. Now I need to be careful with what I'm collecting. On this bush right here, which grows about 1 to 2 feet tall, this is soap berries. All the berries have fallen off of this, and the soap berries have a very similar color and shape. I'm pulling directly from the plant of the lingonberry, and I'm not picking up any berries directly off the ground. There is a recipe for what's called Indian ice cream. I can't imagine it's very enjoyable to eat because of the saponifins that this has. It's called soapberry for a reason. And I might collect some of these and try making my own dish soap. But for now, I'm just focusing on the lingonberries. Right next to where there were some lingonberries, there's this little orange berry. This is a pumpkin berry. While it's edible, it's not very tasty. It has a lot of saponifins in it, and so it's kind of soapy tasting. And so I want to avoid those. Overall, I was able to collect about 2 cups of lingonberries, which I am going to sort, rinse, and then I'll dry them and store them in Ziploc bags in the freezer until I'm ready to use them. At least twice a year, you should be checking the batteries on your smoke detector. Most smoke detectors come with a button that you can push that should test the batteries. Tina doesn't like it. But I'm going to go ahead and replace these even though I know they're working. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to ensure that they're working. I do not want to take a chance of these failing on me when I most need them. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in some new batteries. Oops, and I'm not going to reverse the polarity on these. Make sure you know which direction your batteries need to go in.
Push test button. Carbon monoxide.
All right, batteries have been replaced in one. I'm going to do the rest of these, but I also need to replace the batteries in my motion detectors outside. So let's head outside and take care of that. I recently had another 6 cords of wood delivered, and so I need to get busy and get this stacked. I've just had it under tarps sitting on the ground, but with all the rain that we've had, it's starting to draw up some of that moisture. So I'm going to put it here in the woodshed as much as I can. I should be able to get another 2, maybe 3 cords in here, and then the rest I'm going to stack underneath the awning, underneath the front of the cabin. And with any luck, I'll get it all up before we get too much snow. It's supposed to snow in the next day or so. Hopefully it won't stick. It's been really warm here, believe it or not. Right now it is about 45 degrees out. It's supposed to be a high of 50 today. But then in the next week, the temperatures are only supposed to be in the teens. So a change is coming, and I need to get my gear. I need to get in gear. So basically, I'm just sorting the wood out, not too much, but by various sizes. There's some shortcuts that I'm putting over on one side, some of the skinnier logs also, and then anything that's kindling worthy there, and then the larger pieces will go here. However, for the most part this year, I will not be utilizing my wood stove to heat the cabin. At least that's the intention. I plan on using the oil burner mostly because I need to burn through the oil that I have in there so that come next spring, I can have the stands rebuilt. But we can't do that now because there's still about 300 gallons of, well, probably closer to 200 gallons of fuel still in those tanks. So I'll be burning through that and then using the wood stove to supplement the oil burner this year as opposed to the opposite. So back to work I go. I've got a lot of wood to stack. And let's head up the ladder so I can clean the chimney, because once there's snow up there, I don't think I want to get back on this metal roof. Well, I'm on the peak of the roof. I'm about to clean the chimney, but yeah, let's just say it's a bit sketchier having the metal roof up here and with the chimney being up on the ridge of the roof, and the roof is wet because it rained overnight. So I need to calm down for a second. Just climbed the ladder all the way up here from basically right there. Yeah, and I'm afraid of heights. Did I mention that? Afraid of heights. So I'm gonna get busy and get this filmed. cleaned, but I do want to film just a little bit and show you that the chimney, now granted, it has only been in operation for about a month, actually looks pretty good. It was at this moment that I realized that I was not prepared to do this job. I brought a Phillips head screwdriver with me. However, the bits holding the new cap on are star bits, so I had to go down, get the proper tool, and come back up. What was I saying a second ago? Yeah, and I'm afraid of heights. Did I mention that? Afraid of heights. Before I even started to climb the ladder the first time, I did alert my neighbor that I was going to be cleaning my chimney. While I may have come up that direction, I'm going down that direction. I'm going to slide down. And I told him that, if I wasn't down in a short time, that he might want to come check on me and make sure that I hadn't fallen either off the ladder or off the roof. And I had failed to inform him that I needed to run down to get an additional tool and that it was going to take me longer. He had been estimating how long it'd be before I texted him, and when he didn't get that text message, he did come over to check on me. Then, upon arriving and not seeing me on top of the roof, just did not sit very well. And so I needed to eat a little bit of crow as I explained to him what had taken place and thanked him for coming over to check on me. Yeah, lesson learned. Keep those lines of communication open. Also picked up a couple Chim Facts, which are essentially a flare, which has been designed specifically to extinguish a chimney fire. And hopefully by keeping these on hand, should a chimney fire break out, I can get that extinguished quickly, and that way the cabin doesn't burn down around me. Now is the time of the year when I also check my fire extinguishers. Some of these fire extinguishers were here when I purchased the cabin, and some, like this one here, are some that I bought. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the pressure gauge on each of my fire extinguishers and making sure that the needle is in the green, which should indicate that these are good to use. Fire extinguishers that are used in a commercial business are required in most jurisdictions to be serviced annually. And unfortunately, most residential fire extinguishers are not serviced. And so really your only way of checking to make sure that they're still viable is to check that gauge and make sure, as I mentioned, that the needle is in the green. You can't pull the pin and discharge the fire extinguisher to test it, because once you discharge it, you release all that pressure, and then the fire extinguisher is no longer good and you'll have to replace it. One thing that most people might not know is that the fire extinguishers that are readily available for residential use are not rated to be used on a grease fire. So it's a good idea to keep some baking soda handy or a lid close by when you're cooking so that you could quickly suffocate a fire should one start in your pan. I know you know this, but it's a good thing to remind those that are growing up to never throw water on a grease fire. So these two that are older, I'm going to put these in the least likely place that I might have a fire. I'm going to make sure that the newer fire extinguishers are placed in areas that might be more prone to having a fire start. Because I live in a cabin and I live so remotely, I am placing a fire extinguisher in every room of the cabin. I recommend that you have fire extinguishers at arm's length at all times in your home. I also keep one in my vehicle because you never know when a car fire might start. And I also recommend that if you've not already changed the batteries in your smoke alarms, that you do so now. I'm going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, hopefully you've changed out the batteries in your smoke detectors. What are you waiting for? Go, get. There's no time like the present. I'll be here when you get back. A couple weeks ago, I went ahead and had the oil changed and a tune-up done on my vehicle, as well as checking the tires. I made sure that I got some all-terrain tires because I do live on a gravel road and have a gravel drive. So I know that they're going to do me well in this winter months. I'm not a big fan of studded tires, nor am I a big fan of having to swap the tires out every season. So those will do me well for both. Last year I put together a video about my safety preps, my safety gear essentially. And now that winter is fast approaching, I am working on making sure that I have everything in the vehicle that I need should I venture out and then wind up getting stuck. But this year I've decided that I need to step up my game a little bit. So I'm putting together a tote of items that should hopefully carry me through the night if I happen to get stuck on the roadside. So one of the very first things that I have in my tote here is a 4-season sleeping bag. This sleeping bag is guaranteed to keep you warm down to negative 40 degrees. And so this is the very first thing that I'm building my kit around. And in addition to this, I also have some small blankets. These blankets are not necessarily for me, but they're more for Kenai. I always carry a big fleece blanket in the car for Kenai, but these are in case he gets cold and needs some additional warmth. These should help hold in his body heat. I also have a small pillow in here for myself as well. And then on top of these, I need to make sure that I have food and water for both Kenai and I. So I have a big jug of water here. I've left plenty of headspace so that this can stay out in the vehicle, and if it freezes, it can expand without cracking the bottle. And then when it comes to food, I have actually packed things into glass jars. I know that glass jars are not what most people would think of when they think about packing food away for themselves in a vehicle. But the reason that I'm doing this is in Alaska, there's a big problem with mice and shrews breaking into people's cars and then nesting in there. So this plastic tote is not rodent proof. Mice can chew through plastic, but by putting it into glass, I have a better chance of keeping them out of my food supply. So in this particular container, I have just snack foods, essentially. But, you know, a bag of cookies, there's some granola bars in here, and some fruit chews, some, fruit leathers, and then some sunflower seeds, things like that. In addition to this, I also plan on putting together some instant ready-to-heat meals in jars as well to keep in the car, such as quick cooking oats with some dried fruit and nuts in it and milk powder. So all I have to do is heat up water, add it in, and I've got a meal ready to go. I'll also be doing some instant soup mixes and things like that. So if I'm stuck for a long period of time, I have food to carry me through. One of the other things is that I'm carrying a couple of these little jet boil packs in my car. You just put on a little foot topper and set your cup or your container on top to heat your water, and then you can use that to then rehydrate your food. But in addition to these things and the things that I've already mentioned, I recently acquired a Garmin inReach Mini, which is an emergency beacon that I can use to alert my friends and family of my location. I can send an SOS signal to the authorities that will give them my exact GPS coordinates so they can send help if needed, or I can send out a quick text message to let everybody know that I'm okay. This does run off of a month-to-month subscription, so I would need to activate it before I leave, but it's a convenient tool to keep around because it doesn't require a cell signal. Thanks to some of my viewers that have sent me things, I also have a full trauma kit that I'm keeping in the vehicle and a little lantern so I can have some light available to me. And then one of the other things that I purchased this year was this flare, and I plan on keeping this in the vehicle. I also have one here at the cabin, but it does require batteries. It requires size C batteries. It comes with some, but I'm going to put some additional batteries inside my tote as well. And as far as the glass jars are concerned, I'll be wrapping these up inside of the blankets and inside the sleeping bag so that they're cushioned and they don't rattle around and get broke from jostling against each other in the vehicle. Now, it is important to swap out your food periodically as well, because if you keep this in your vehicle during the summer months, there's a chance that the foods that are in here are going to go rancid, especially if there's anything that contains nuts in it. Nuts are not shelf stable, and most of the time they should be stored in a freezer so that the oils stay as fresh as possible for as long as possible. So things like his kibble will burn through over the course of the summer if he doesn't wind up needing this during the winter. Fingers crossed that that's the case. And in addition to having these items in here, I also have some instant coffee and some utensils, as well as a stainless steel cup and bowl, and then of course the almighty TP. Can't go anywhere without this stuff in your emergency pack. So if you haven't already prepped your vehicle for winter, this is just one of the things you might want to consider doing. But in addition to that, I recommend that you get an oil change and a tire rotation, if not swapping out your tires entirely for this season. In addition to everything else I've mentioned, I'm also making sure that I have emergency lighting at the ready in case I need it. So I do have a Coleman propane lantern. It puts out 1,500 lumens. That is going to be for worst case scenario, dead of the night, that I have to go outside where there is no light available. It puts off a lot of heat, plus 1,500 lumens will light up the entirety of my front yard, essentially. Mostly what I'm working with is flashlights. I just have a couple of my flashlights here. I have flashlights stored throughout every room in the cabin. It's important to keep in mind that when you're dealing with a flashlight for emergency lighting, you don't want to go any higher than 500 lumens. Anything higher than that, it's going to get hot. It could potentially catch stuff on fire, and it's going to wear your batteries down really quickly. So I do have rechargeable batteries for my flashlights. And then, of course, this little pin light just takes some AAAs. But as I said, flashlights everywhere. In addition to that, these 2 kerosene lamps that were sent in by viewers, I really appreciate these because they've already come in handy during a power outage that I had recently. And then, of course, I have, headlamps available to me. And the other day, I encountered a giant moose while outside. This is one of the reasons why I'm always carrying a firearm with me. So as I head into winter, I'm making sure that all my firearms are cleaned and that they're ready, should I have the need to use either my sidearm or one of my rifles or shotguns to protect myself. I'll have those. I did want to share a recipe with everyone today. However, the recipe is quite involved and should honestly be a standalone video. So if you'd like to check out a recipe for cassoulet, please check back with me on Sunday and I will have that video out for you. Anyhow, I'm going to finish eating my dinner and then I got to finish getting these winter preps done. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and enjoy these videos in case you haven't seen them already.